Señoras y señores, bienvenidos.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the annual meeting of the Boards of Governors of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Inter-American Investment Corporation 2023. This first part of our meeting will be chaired by the outgoing chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the Bank and the Corporation, the Honorable Nigel Clark. Moreover, at the head table, we have Mr. Elon Goldfein, President of the Inter-American Development Bank and President of the Board of Executive Directors of the Inter-American Investment Corporation. Madam Reina Irene Mejia Chacon, Executive Vice President of the bank, Mr. James Scriven, General Manager of the corporation, and Mr. Gerardo Corrochano, Secretary of the bank and of this meeting.
I now yield the floor to the chairperson of the Board of Governors of the Bank and the Corporation, the Honorable Nigel Clark.
Good afternoon, governors. The necessary quorum is present, and therefore I now call to order this inaugural session of the annual meeting of the Boards of Governors of the Bank and the Corporation. On behalf of all governors, I'd like to thank the Republic of Panama and particularly Panama City for the warm welcome and gracious hospitality. As the outgoing chairperson of the Board of Governors and the Bank and the Corporation, I will rise to the podium to provide a synopsis of the work done since our last annual meeting. I want to thank President Goldfein and again thank the Republic of Panama and the City of Panama as well for hosting this meeting. This meeting this year represents the first face-to-face meeting with the expanded participation since 2019. So it's the first face-to-face meeting in 4 years. You'll recall that the 2020 meeting was suspended and the meeting in 2021 was held in Barranquilla with a reduced participation, and the 2022 meeting was held virtually from Washington. As such, this year's staging of the annual meeting is symbolic in quite a number of ways, including the important role played by the IDB group during the course of the pandemic in supporting member countries in enduring the pandemic and in the recovery. The fortitude and resilience shown in the region in weathering the storms of the last 3 years, and the strengthened partnership of the IDB group with its borrowing countries and all member countries was highlighted and surely has been a welcome feature of the past several years. The IDB group and countries work together to entrench macroeconomic stability, to deepen resilience, and to address the social gaps that emerged or were intensified during this period. In addition to tackling the residual impacts of the debilitating COVID-19 pandemic, our countries are now faced with new global setbacks, such as the effects of Russia's war on the Ukraine and its domino effects, the increase in the prices of energy and food commodities, as well as the inflation that this has engendered across the world. The response of monetary authorities with the tightening of interest rates and the contraction of financial conditions around the world. The magnitude and nature of the COVID-19 pandemic and the corresponding government responses have resulted in an exacerbation of debt to GDP ratios across many countries, and particularly countries in the Caribbean. At the same time, citizens are increasingly demanding more and better public services from governments across the region, and this exacerbates tension. There are growing expectations among citizens in our region for good health care, for better sanitation, for improved education outcomes, and for other publicly delivered services. And governments have no choice but to respond. The confluence of these issues, higher debt, increased poverty, exacerbated social inequalities, and increased demands for better services, while having limited resources to do so, limited by the availability of fiscal space, means that countries will have to turn to the IDB group for requisite support in the form of reforms, but also financing. As such, we welcome the operational update provided, noting the increase in approval amounts. The average approved value of the last 5 years was $12.75 billion, which represents a 21% increase from the preceding 5-year period. I think the management represents a round of applause for that improvement. In addition, a number of our borrowing countries are in the category of small and vulnerable. And I'm pleased to update the membership of the governors of the IDB that approvals for small and vulnerable countries, what we call technically the C and D countries, I think we need to upgrade that to the A and B countries, were approximately $5.8 billion in 2022, an increase of 8% over the previous year, and those allocations represented 46% of all approvals in 2022, which is 11 percentage points above the 35% target in the corporate results framework. So the IDB certainly mobilized and came to the support of small and vulnerable groups in 2022. This region requires bold and creative action with the support of partners such as the Inter-American Development Bank, and as the region's oldest and largest development institution, the role of the IDB in advancing the development and welfare and advancing the regional priorities of our countries is most critical and important. As governors are aware, prior to the pandemic and other global shocks that emanated from the pandemic, the IDB group has been engaged extensively in analytical work to ensure that the bank is effective in addressing the development needs of the region as part of the mandate set forth in the Barranquilla Resolution of 2021. During the March 2022 annual meetings, governors considered this analytical work in a desire to expand on its findings with a focus on development effectiveness, private sector growth and participation, and advance in the climate change action and social agendas. We passed the Washington Resolution, which mandated the IDB Board of Executive Directors and IDB Management to prepare a report advancing the operational and institutional reforms outlined in the analytical work. There's continuity in the process of addressing the meeting of the Washington mandate. As the President outlined in his remarks, no reform agenda will be left behind. The changing global, regional, and domestic risks in Latin America and the Caribbean require that the boards of governors and the board of executive directors move swiftly on this and on the development of the next institutional strategy. In November 2022, due to extraordinary circumstances, the election of a new president of the IDB was held. And I want to use this opportunity again to recognize the professionalism, the openness, the transparency, the competition, and the inclusiveness that took place during that process. This was a historic demonstration of the unity of purpose and the resolve of our region and a historic turn for the institution. The election contributed to the renewing of the foundations of the IDB, the restoring of trust and confidence in its governance, and the revitalizing of its purpose. The elected president, Mr. Elan Golfan, started his term on December 19th, which is just shy of 3 months of taking office. I think you'll agree with me that he's off to a most prodigious start. And during this short time, he has already demonstrated his commitment to fostering an environment of openness and trust. And we see that demonstrated in the unity of purpose that was all on display in our meeting moments ago. In January, when the new president gave his inaugural address, he laid out his priorities and his vision to make this institution the most trusted, the most agile, and the most important development partner for Latin America and for the Caribbean. This annual meeting represents an opportunity to further strengthen this cooperation within the governors and this new management. In concluding, fellow governors and delegations, I am confident that the IDB Group will continue to strengthen and expand its support and assistance to the region as we work to strengthen institutions, to close social gaps across the region, to deepen private sector engagement, to promote regional integration, and to improve the resilience of our countries in the face of future challenges. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve you and to serve the Board of Governors of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Inter-American Investment Corporation as your chairman for the year 2022-2023. I thank you. Governors, I now invite the governors to elect one of our colleagues to serve as the chairperson of the Board of Governors of the Bank and Corporation. Pursuant to the regulations of the boards, the governor so elected will hold office as chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Inter-American Investment Corporation until the next annual meeting of the Board of Governors. The governor for Belize now has the floor, followed by the governor for Paraguay and the governor for the Dominican Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. In my capacity as governor of Belize, I am pleased to nominate the governor of Panama, Mr. Hector Alexander, as the new president of the Boards of Governors of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Inter-American Investment Corporation.
I now invite the governor from Paraguay. You have the floor.
Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. As a governor for the Republic of Paraguay, I am pleased to second the motion presented by the governor for Belize, such that Mr. Alexander will be the new governor for the Boards of Governors of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Inter-American Investment Corporation. I'm sure that his leadership and professionalism will be key to confront the IDB's challenges.
Thank you, Governor. The governor for the Dominican Republic now has the floor.
Muchas gracias,
Thank
presidente.
you very much, Chair. On behalf of the government of the Dominican Republic and as governor for the Dominican Republic, I would like to second the motions of both the governor for Belize as well as the governor for Paraguay, such that Minister Alexander, Minister of Economy of Panama, be nominated as governor or as chair of the Boards of Governors.
Thank you, Governor. The governor for Belize has nominated the governor for the Republic of Panama, Mr. Hector Alexander, as chairperson of the boards of governors of the bank and the corporation. The governor for Paraguay has seconded the nomination. The governor for the Dominican Republic has also seconded the nomination and proposes that the election be by acclamation. Ladies and gentlemen, accordingly, the governor for the Republic of Panama, Mr. Hector Alexander, is hereby elected by acclamation to serve as chairperson of the boards of governors of the bank and the corporation. I now invite the new chairperson of the boards of governors to the platform.
Buenos días, estimado.
Good morning, esteemed governors. Well, in fact, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to begin by thanking the governor for Belize, Mr. John Briceño, the governor for Paraguay, Mr. Oscar Llamosas Diaz, and the governor for the Dominican Republic, Mr. Jose Manuel Vicente Bot, for their nomination and their support. I want to express my deepest appreciation for being elected new chairperson of the boards of governors of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Inter-American Investment Corporation. It is an honor. It is also a great responsibility that I promise to discharge with great commitment, as this role requires, in a search to make sure that our actions are always for a better future for our institutions and our countries. I would like to extend a very special greeting to my friend and the president of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Inter-American Investment Corporation, Mr. Ilan Goldfein, the executive vice president, Reina Irene Mejia, the secretary of the bank, Gerardo Corrochano, and the general manager of the Inter-American Investment Corporation, James Scriven, Richard Martinez, Vice President for Countries, Benigno Lopez, Vice President for Sectors and Knowledge, Gustavo de Rosa, Vice President for Finance and Administration, and all other bank management and technical staff, to the 48 official delegations gathered here today. Dear Rocio Medina Bolivar, IDB Group representative in Panama, it is always an honor to have you with us. After overcoming the COVID-19 crisis, the world economy is now facing Russia's war against Ukraine and tension in Asia, which has led to an increase worldwide of prices of energy sources, gas and oil, as well as some foods such as wheat, corn, vegetable oils, and others. In addition to this, COVID-19 subsidies to the population for main developed countries has led to an increase in world inflation, which in some countries is now at double digits. In order to combat inflation, the world's central banks are increasing their interest rates as they seek to limit the scourge while avoiding an economic recession. A tremendous challenge, without a doubt. Our country, early in 2020, started that decade with a government program that prioritized education within a framework of strengthening its economic fundamentals, sustained economic growth, low price increases, moderate unemployment, and a very low fiscal deficit timeline compared to the other countries in the world. At the beginning of the third month of 2020, we saw the first COVID case, and we saw how in a few weeks fiscal revenues were significantly reduced. In order to safeguard the lives and the health of our people, many local economic activities were limited. We saw also a limitation on economic activities internationally, such as aviation, cruise ships, and tourism in general. That year, Panama suffered one of its largest reductions in its economy in its history, 18.5% drop. In order to deal with that challenge, our government amended its fiscal social responsibility law to unheard of levels, 2.5% of the fiscal deficit over nominal GDP for 2020, thereby leading to a strategy for a gradual reduction, which we've achieved, and this year we are down to 3.0%. Our government executed a large amount of its budget with international credit-derived resources. We have no central bank, while at the same time we energetically restructured our budget, focusing on health and the needs of those who were most impacted by the crisis. The government's strategy to manage public finances was based on using automatic stabilizers, which really bore positive results. Our economy has been recovering quite well, with a real growth rate of 15.8% in 2021 and 10.8% in 2022. We have a projection of 5% growth in 2023. That's in light of the effects of current international situation. We can also underscore a reduction in unemployment, which was quite impressive, with a drop in unemployment from 18.5% in 2020 to less than 10% by mid-2022, thanks to a significant creation of formal jobs. It is appropriate to point out that during all of these years, we have met our fiscal deficit targets set in 2020, which, together with the development of other social policies, has allowed us to maintain our investment grade. As for the rest of our administration, we intend to continue strengthening the economic fundamentals of our economy, continuing to attract foreign investment, while at the same time we will promote an ambitious public investment program with the support of one of our most important strategic partners, the IDB Group. Our government's priority is to continue bolstering our fiscal policy to generate confidence in our country, focusing on the importance of public savings and central government revenues as we continue to reduce the public debt burden on our economy, as we have achieved over these last 2 years. Given all of these challenges and the goals that we have set for ourselves, we are more than grateful for the support provided by the IDB Group, which, in addition to providing financing, has provided us with technical assistance, which has led to our strengthening our capacity and invest in our ability to invest in projects in various sectors that are very important for the well-being of our country's citizens. Inequality, poverty, climate change, sustainable growth, infrastructure, biodiversity, social inclusion. These are the challenges that all of our countries face. Panama, with the IDB Group support, seeks to address these problems through operations that include lending, grants, technical assistance, and other programs. We are fully convinced that all of us together can help the IDB Group continue to strengthen and bolster its activities so that it can support greater growth and development in our region. Thank you very much.